Right, hello. We'll make a start. Um, First things first. I trust that you're all well during these very strange times. And working from home. I've been working from home now for 10 years, so it's part of the course for me. But I know a lot of you have upped your offices and headed off home, and I hope business is still going. It's a very worrying time for a lot of organisations around the world. Right, my name's Ian Robinson. I'm a certified professional instructor. I've been doing this for over 17 years. I train, I consult, I present, I generally evangelise geospatial and civil engineering and BIM solutions. So this particular subject is close to my heart. It's something that I spend a ridiculous amount of time talking to GIS people, engineers, CAD people, just trying to get them all to talk. So I was keen to get this one out as often as I can. So I work for Graitec. We're a worldwide organisation. That's our presence throughout Europe. So the dark blue is where our offices are, and the light blue is where our partners are. And around the world, we've got offices in every continent or partners as well. We've been doing this for over 30 years. We're still growing. We're very healthy. We're actually an editor and a service provider. So we position ourselves as fully understanding the BIM process and making sure that you have the tools to react to that. And of course, customer first. That's our mantra, and we really do mean it. We work with the Autodesk portfolio and with our Power Pack enhancements and also our own software. And we aid the creation of construction and manufacturing deliverables. Combine this with the use of simulation products to verify the deliverables and enable us to drive them into the fabrication process. We then manage deliverables with our CDE products. So we're basically end-to-end solutions. So that's how we do it. We start off with the Autodesk portfolio. We have our own simulate products on top of that and our fabricate products, and a combination of Autodesk BIM 360, and we manage through our OpenTree platform as well. And it's all about this BIM solutions. And keep an eye out for the BIM Up conference that we held very successfully last year. I haven't got the stats on me, but they were really big. Hundreds and hundreds of people, thousands turned up. We did something like 95 different languages, something like that turned up. So we're going to be holding that again this year, another virtual conference. So keep your eye out for that one there. Now, time is of the essence. These webinars are cut slightly short because we're running so many at the moment. So we don't want to have any overlap between my colleagues running theirs and mine as well. So I'm not going to go into these, but these are our power packs for Revit and also for Advanced Steel, and we are looking at civils. Up and coming webinars. So the first one, I did point clouds. I've done another one today that I've knocked off the list because it's later on as well. And this one is the GIS BIM Conundrum. Next, we'll be doing a repeat of this morning's first session. So if you missed this morning's session, then I'll be doing Understanding Subassemblies again on the 8th of April at 2 p.m. Next, my top 10 tips for using Civil 3D and InfoWorks. Basically, I scoured all my colleagues and customers around the world and came up with the top 10 in the list of things that people do. And this is the list of them. I'll be running that in April, both on the 8th and 9th. And then I'm focusing on InfoWorks and looking at outline planning applications. Then taking an AutoCAD 2D drawing and making a 3D model. That was the most popular one last year. So I thought I'd rerun it again now. Next is then federating your models from Revit, InfoWorks, Civil 3D, any other models basically, into Navisworks, again part of the BIM process. And then I'll be looking at specifically Civil 3D and InfoWorks and where them two sit in the design process. Our past webinars, you can get them on the Graitec On Demand page. So if you just went to our homepage, www.graitec.co.uk, I'm based in the UK. Each country's got their own language version, so .it or .de for Germany, etc. We've got an on-demand page, and you'll be able to see past tutorials and webinars and some tips and tricks and stuff like that. And we've also got our blogs as well. So you can go to our blogs. Again, in the top right of the web page, you'll see our blogs, and you can subscribe and get them straight to your inbox there as well. Okay, so I'm based in the UK, so we are going to be talking about UK data sources primarily, including data based on the EU directive INSPIRE. So all across Europe, including the EFTA, which is the European Free Trade Association nations, government agencies are giving access to their data. Oh, excuse me, sneeze, not good. Anyway, so they're doing that across Europe, but actually they're doing it all over the world. You know, there's loads of countries. I'll show you some of them around the world as well. So this is your BIM world, if you like. And it all starts with data. Before you do anything in any project, we generally start with data. So let's just start with what BIM is not. BIM is not Revit, okay? In fact, it's not software at all. There are software packages out there such as Revit, Bentley, Civil 3D, InfoWorks, just to name but a few. And they're excellent packages to use within a BIM process, but they in themselves are not BIM. And it's not buildings. Admittedly, we don't help ourselves calling it building information modeling, but it's not about buildings. Let's think of BIM as building, as in creating, putting together, information, as in data, facts and knowledge, and modeling, as in data modeling. Or you could even say managing, data managing. It's all about the data. Sometimes that data is a 3D model, but it can also be a spreadsheet, a spatial file, a flood data set. It can be some CAD data, it can be project plans, it can be timelines. It's basically all about the process. It's all about making the process of building things more efficient. So here's my BIM. I got this from the UK BIM task force. And it's basically, we're at BIM level 2. You can see there BIM level 0, how we used to work. Then we started working in 3D, BIM level 1. Now we're at BIM level 2, where we've got our 3D models and we create a federated model. And the three key deliverables are 2D stuff, so PDFs cut from the models, the actual models themselves, and COBie data. They're the key deliverables in there. Basically, that's where we're at there, BIM level 2. So the CDE will consume data, including the 3D models and any other data. That includes your GI data, your geographical information data. So you can interrogate the CDE and produce information from it. So again, that information right at the beginning of the project is vital for your common data environment. So when it comes to spatial data, what are we talking about? Well, we all know digital data is just a load of ones and noughts. And if you're familiar with organized data, such as databases like Access, or smaller databases like Excel or CSV files, well, spatial files are exactly the same, but they have information about their place in the world. And this could be anything from a simple X and Y coordinate right through to complex 3D models with data modeling behind it. So which software is best to consume, analyze and manage spatial data? Well, there's a whole load out there. Here's the top ones, like Esri, for example. That's probably top in terms of sales and users. You may have heard of terms like ArcView or ArcGIS. These are Esri platforms. The file format, you might come across a shapefile or .shp. That's an Esri format. So is a personal geodatabase, which is actually a Microsoft database, but it's specified by Esri. File geodatabases, they're also Esri as well. MapInfo is another provider. This is owned by a company called Pitney Bowes, which is the Franking people, oddly enough. But anyway, they own them. You'll come across maybe .tab files, .tab files, or mif-mid files. They're map info files. They're certainly the most common ones. Now, the other one that I come across a lot is CAD Corp. Now, these guys, although they do have their own format, you need to have your own format, they advocate open standards, so they can consume many formats. They're basically, they work really closely with the Ordnance Survey and the OGC, the Open Geospatial Consortium, who support international interoperability standards for geospatial systems. So they're very open in terms of and they're used throughout the world as well. There's free ones out there as well. Now, CAD Corp produce a free viewer, which is really good. QGIS, though, is an open source project. That's probably the best of the free ones out there. You just need to learn that. The good news for you, though, is Autodesk also have GIS tools. You may not have seen them, but they are there. I'm not going to go through all the tools today. It's just a beginner's guide. If you need any extra information, again, just indicate in the questions box or send me an email, and we can talk about training separately. But I am going to show you where you can get the data from, what sort of data should you be using to use in your Autodesk product. So which products can you use in Autodesk range? Well, actually, AutoCAD. If you are just an AutoCAD user, you can download, as long as you're running, I think it was 2019 the start, no, it was 2019 they started. If you're an AutoCAD user, instead of downloading AutoCAD, you can download AutoCAD Map 3D, and I'll show you that. It's just AutoCAD with bells and whistles on it, basically. That will give you all the geospatial tools that you need. Next is Civil 3D. That's got AutoCAD and AutoCAD Map 3D built into it, so you can use that. And next is InfoWorks. So they're the products that I'm going to be working with generally. Now, all of these products will interact with your digital world. So you can bring data in, and you can also send data out. So if you are an organization, particularly like with local authorities and stuff like that, where you've got maybe an Esri platform, you can work with that. And in fact, since last year, Esri and Autodesk have entered into a development partnership. Okay, if your organization or the project you're working on has an ArcGIS package and it's producing mapping data or consuming mapping data, then you can connect directly to that, or you can publish to that. So you can output this all the way to the public or just within your project. So there's plenty of stuff that you can do with that. Now, it'd be a bit remiss of me to talk about data without talking about risk. Now, spatial data and non-spatial data, they've got the same risks involved, but spatial data has an additional risk. In terms of security, file sharing's got its own risks, and that doesn't change when we're talking about cloud surfaces or anything like that. It's probably less of a conversation because you don't need to worry too much about the security that's done in the cloud services. But again, you possibly could say, well, I've got less control over that. So you need to consider that. But no, what I'm talking about, the biggest risk is understanding the data. We can reduce a lot of problems just by understanding where the data comes from, what the data is reporting. You need to spend a little bit of time understanding what the data is telling you. When was it collected? Is the information relevant to you? I know this sounds crazy, but if you want to know how an area floods, should you be looking at flood zone 2, flood zone 3, product 4, product 5? Should you be looking at a 1 in 30-year event, or a 1 in 100, or a 1 in 1,000-year event? Should you be looking at surface depth or water speed? It really is a minefield out there, but all the information is there. You just need to make sure you read it. So don't just blindly download a data set, bang it in and say this area floods. Explain what the data is telling you. That's the most important thing. Okay, so what digital data is out there? Well, there's a lot of free data sources. Those of you that have used InfoWorks will have used Model Builder, for example. This supplies Bing maps, aerial imagery. It's the exact same data you see in the AutoCAD products. So if you're using Bing maps in AutoCAD, it's the exact same data, the exact same service. You get buildings, roads, and coverage areas, so like land use areas. You get that from OpenStreetMap, and again, that's a free community-sourced project, so that gives you some good stuff. It's crowdsourced, I know, but you know it's pretty good in cities and stuff like that. Less so in the suburbs and in the country. The roads are all covered, and the aerial imagery is coming from Bing anyway. It's things like buildings you'll see less of. It really depends how many geeks are out there. The land form in InfoWorks, that comes from two sources depending on where you are. Basically, if you're really far north, you get actually a better data source. But it comes from the USGS SRT MGL1 data set, which was produced way back in the year 2000 at a resolution of 1 arc second. If you get your calculator out, you can work out that 1 arc second is equivalent to about 30 meters. So it's a resolution of 30 meters. So 30-meter resolution, year 2000, don't expect anything miraculous there, but I'm going to show you where there are some other data sources that you can work with that's more up to date and potentially more accurate, depending on whereabouts you are. Next is ArcView. You can see there. So that's if you're working with Esri products, and you can get in there. You need to be a little bit careful if you do use the ArcView one, because there are some freely published data on there, and you can go and just download any old data set from anyone. But the problem is anyone can upload data. So be careful of your sources, and I would make sure you go to the source rather than using the ArcGIS provider. Admittedly, if you go on the ArcGIS provider and search for Esri UK or whichever country you're in, you'll probably find, certainly in the UK, you'll find that Esri UK have uploaded a lot of the Environment Agency data, and it is pretty good. But you might as well go to the source and get that. I would only advocate using the Esri link if you have got an ArcGIS server. So if you're working for a local authority or an organisation that's got online mapping using ArcGIS, that's your man. That's the one you should be using. OpenStreetMap, we've already mentioned that, so that's what InfoWorks uses in its model builder, but you can go straight to the OpenStreetMap one, and if you feel that way inclined, you can go and start mapping stuff as well. And you can download things like buildings, roads, and stuff like that from there. There is a plan to get aerial imagery in there. I'm not sure how they're going to do this, but I know that that is a project that started. They sent me a tweet about it last year saying, are you going to provide stuff for it? I'm guessing it's going to be mainly drone stuff, and then they're going to have to somehow stitch it all together. We'll see. I haven't looked into that. But OpenStreetMap's there, as I say, good for towns, not so good for villages. Now, this is the best one for us in the UK. It's the Ordnance Survey Open Data. Now, in the Open Data portal, you get really up-to-date data, which is brilliant. It's vector mapping or raster mapping of the whole of the UK. It's kept up to date, and it's derived from the basis of one of the world's best mapping products, which is MasterMap. So it's really, really good. And then the next one is the Open Government Data Formats. Okay, this deserves a little bit of additional attention. So if I go into that. So this is the INSPIRE directive. I mentioned it a little bit earlier, but let's just explain what I mean. It stands for Infrastructure for Spatial Information in Europe. It was basically an EU directive that was designed to have a European-wide shared data set that feeds into EU environmental policies. The good news is everybody's uploading to that. So if you're a local authority and you've got a database full of where all your street lights are, the chances are your GIS team have uploaded that into this portal. And that means when you get to your project, you can download that data and see where all the street lights are without even going on site, which is brilliant. What it means for us, though, that we have all this access to really important data, fundamental data for any construction project. So each member state, they have their own portal, and you can see them all listed there on the screen now. It does include, as I said earlier, the EFTA members, so that's North Macedonia, Serbia and Turkey. They're all working as well on that. I suspect each country has varying levels of quality in there, but there is a standard that the European Union has required that we should all be working to, but be aware of that. There is a handy little map as well. Seems apt, doesn't it, given the subject matter? So in the UK, we're a bit special in more ways than one, but basically because we're made up of nations. So Scotland have their own portal, for example. Northern Ireland have got their own portal. Wales, I think, is mainly within the UK because it's covered under DEFRA. But you can see you've got the Environmental Scotland data set there as well. So depending on which country in the UK you are, you will go to your relevant portal. Here's the one for us. So there's America, for example. So as I said, there's loads of them all around the world. You've all got your own portals in there. So it's not just European. It is because it just makes sense, doesn't it, that we share this information? What's the point in doing 3 surveys in the same plot of land? Right, so next, this is our portal, data.gov.uk. You can go there and you can see I've highlighted environmental and mapping in there. You can do a search. Here's a handy search, for example, geospatial data catalogue. And you can see you've got land registry, you've got the coal authority, the hydrographic office, the British Geological Survey. All these people are posting their data on there, and we are going to have a quick look at some of them. Right, paid for data. Interesting. If you are going to buy your data, there's plenty of places for that. And again, in the UK, every country generally has a national mapping organisation. If you don't and you want me to help you find yours, then let me know. But in the UK, ours is the Ordnance Survey. And you can buy data from there really cheaply. You don't buy it direct from the OS usually. You go to a third-party reseller. We've no affiliation with any of these. So I've just put up randomly 1, 2, 3, 4 different suppliers. You just pick the one you like and stick with them, I guess. I don't think prices vary that much. The images down there are an idea of the sort of quality of data that we have. We've got aerial imagery, we've got rivers, we've got road networks, rail networks, basically transport network, and we've got the topographic data as well. And actually in the topographic data, the OS are now doing building heights as well. So if you want actual building heights, that's the one to go for. That's the useful one. So the big question then is, what's the difference between the free data, because the OS provide a lot of free data, and they also provide a paid for data surface. So I quickly put together this handy little map. I'm going to probably bung this in as a handout to you all as well, actually. When we get to the end, if I haven't done it, remind me to do a handout. In fact, I might just do it now, because otherwise I'll forget, won't I? So hang fire. Dum-dum-dum. I don't want to forget. I think it's quite handy, and I've not tried this handout thing yet, so you can tell me if it works. So I blogged about it. So there is a blog on this about data sources, and I'm going to drag and drop that into the application. Right, that's uploading. That's uploaded now. So there is a handout that you can download now from this application, and it should be Guide to Autodesk Infrastructure Data Sources version 2. You're welcome to have that. If somebody does download it, can you just put a note in the question box, yo, got it? If you don't get it or you can't see it, again, put a note saying I haven't got it. But essentially, here we are. So we've got a little grid here. So the bottom 2 are paid for services and the top 2 are free. And then you choose low detail or high detail, whether it be paid for or not. Excuse me. The key difference is the attribute information. And I'm going to talk to you a little bit about that attribute information and where that could be useful in there. Because actually the open map data, so the top left image there, isn't bad really. What they tend to do with the open data is just block everything into one block. So you can see that that looks like one big building. When you look at it in the master map data, it's not. It's split up into lots of buildings there. The low resolution is useful if you're doing very large areas. So if you're not doing large areas, go for high resolution. If you're doing very large areas, go for low resolution. If you want the detail of all the boundaries of the properties, then you need to go for master map. If you're not fussed about that and you just want roads, you want overhead cables, you want buildings just generally as blocks, then you can go for vector map local. In there, I think that is being discontinued, that. Not sure. Might still be there anyway. Okay, so I think, given the time, we'll just have a little play. Let's have a go. So let me just open up. Let's start with InfoWorks, shall we? Okay, now with InfoWorks, I mentioned about the model builder. Basically, this is the model builder. You can go anywhere in the world. You can zoom into any area you want. Doesn't matter where you are. You can change it to aerial imagery if you want to see it, like so. And you can just either take whatever you see here, or you can pick a rectangle and draw. You can see that it tells you what the square kilometre is. There is a limit of 200 square kilometres, which is massive, so don't worry too much about that. You can adjust it once you've drawn the square if you want. You know, it is adjustable. Or you can draw polygons if you're working on a long linear project down a road, for example, like that road there, rather than having to create a big square map. Or you can use the importer, the polygon importer tool. And what that does is that allows you to use a shapefile, and I'll show you about shapefiles in a minute. So I've just exported here a shapefile from my project. Okay, if I just went into, say, Civil 3D, all I've done is I've taken this boundary here, which is just, I've used a rectangle command, so it's just a polyline, and I used map export. So map, because it's a mapping function, and map export. And all I do, I'll just stick it on the desktop for now, is give it a name, site boundary, and tell it that it's a polygon. Select it manually, so pick that object there. Data, you don't need any data on this. Sometimes I put the layer on it, or I might want to put the area information on there or whatever, but you don't need it. Not for this particular scenario. And in the options, you just need to make sure you treat closed polylines as polygons. So using the rectangle command is useful because that creates a closed polyline. If you use the polyline command and don't hit C on the last one, then you'll need to go into the properties and make sure it's closed. That will just export that. And now, if I went in into my desktop, there it is, site boundary and shapefile. Sorry, projection file. So you pick the shapefile, which is the geometry, and the projection file, which tells it it's on the British National Grid, because of course that big map of the whole world is not on the British National Grid. It's on LL84, so it's just a lat longs. So if I hit open, it should take me straight there. There it is. Brilliant. So that's really useful. Then you give it a name and click Create Model, and that will take about 10 minutes. So here's one I did earlier. That's what you'll get straight out off the bat. So it's all right data. It's got the aerial imagery. It's got a little bit of landform in there. Remember, this is every 30 metre it's got a point. It's got roads in there. Very few buildings. Couple up there. Somebody's mapped them buildings. If I hover that building and go to OpenStreetMap, oh, it's opened up over here. Let me just bring that over. Hang on. Basically, this is the data set. And you can see I'm signed in. I can edit and I can download data. I can do all sorts in here. And you can see people just don't bother mapping the buildings around here. This is a new business park that's been mapped. And if you go into most centres, cities, they're well mapped. But you'll find buildings in suburbs, it all depends how many geeks are there. Obviously not many geeks in Wigan. I suspect if we went to Manchester, look at that, beautiful, Trafford Park. So there's a lot of these being done. You can see there's a good example. This side of the railway line, all mapped. That side, very little mapped. But there's still some. It's building up as we go, so it's not a bad data set. So let's have a look at the free data that we can get. So I'm going to get rid of them buildings and the land use and the railways and the roads and the water areas. Okay, so I want to get better quality land data in there. So I've got 3 options to go for that's useful. I can go to my data.gov.uk and I can download some data from here. Now I've got a shortcut to it. Where is it? There it is. This is the DEFRA survey data download. On that handout, I've given you the links. So you should be able to see the links to get to this web page straight away. Basically, this is your handout I've given you. And if I go in here and go to DEFRA, so there you go. There's the links. So there's the flood data. There's the flood zone 3 downloads. There's the LiDAR. So just click on that link. It'll take you straight here. And you just go in here and draw an area that you want. You can drag a shapefile on here. It does need to be zipped up though. So if I just take a zipped up version of that, I think I've put a folder in a folder. No, it's got it. There you go. So that's the site that we're working on. It tells us what tile it's on. So it's SD50SE. So that tile there is 10 kilometers. So it's 10 by 10. And within that, there are 4 files. There is SD50SE, then there's the northeast, the northwest, the southeast, and the southwest. So there's files within files. So each one of them has 25 files of 1 kilometer. Okay, so you need to find out what your area is that you're working on. I've got a nice little file that does that for me. If I go into here, I've created an OS one of the UK. There we go. And I can zoom in and it will show me which tiles I'm working on. Every time I zoom in, I'll get closer. Okay, so if I wanted this area, it's SD6534. Okay, so I've downloaded this data. You just go get available tiles. And providing you've not hammered your internet by doing a webinar at the same time, it'll happen really quickly. But if you've hammered your internet by uploading this constantly and streaming, it might take a little bit longer. So here's one I did earlier. Oh, it's done it. Here we go. Now the thing to watch out for is DSM and DTM. So DSM is a digital surface model and DTM is a digital terrain model. Surface models have surface features, so it'll have trees, buildings, parked cars, trains running down the track. All of them are included in the surface. That's really good for line of sight, but it's no good for anything else. DTM has all that stripped. That is just the ground. So that's the usual one I'd go for. So in this area, let's have a look at the resolution. They've got a 1 meter and a 2 meter one. There are some different data sets sometimes. There's older ones and newer ones. And all you do is you click on that, download and save the file. Then you need to find out which tiles you're going to use. So I've done that. So let me go into my LiDAR. And this is what you get. You'll get 25 tiles. I've cut it down just to this area here. And there they all are. The .asc files, these are ASCII grid files. I can just drag and drop them all in here. And I just need to tell it that it's on the British National Grid. And basically I need to clip it to the model extent and also put in a null data value. You'll see it says raster, okay? These are raster files, just like images. Now, if you imagine a picture, a photograph that you've taken on your phone, it's square, isn't it? It's not a funny shape, it's square. It might be oblong, but you know what I mean. It's a regular shape. And on there is a grid of pixels, and each of them pixels has 3 numbers to it, an RGB number, which is red, green, blue, and that will then determine what the picture looks like. These files, these ASCII grid files, are exactly the same. They are square tiles with points, like pixels, in a grid, every 1 meter in this case, and they have 3 numbers on them as well, and them 3 numbers are X, Y, Z. And you can mix and match the two. You know, you can basically, if you came to my other if you came to one of my events, you'd see me doing that, mixing and matching that with recap and recap photo. So because the Environment Agency don't necessarily map everywhere, they just map where they want. Where there is an area where they've not mapped, it still has to have data. And what they do is they just put an arbitrary value on that data so that you can miss it out. So the arbitrary value on this is -9999. And what that means is if there is an area where there is no data, it will have that value. InfoWorks will ignore it and leave a hole. And of course, that hole will be filled by the lower quality data here. So if I close and refresh, what will happen? Nothing to start with. It'll just give me a message. Basically, if we have a look at the quality of that data, this is the LiDAR. You just need to drag it into the ground surface and turn it on. Watch the difference. Boom. Pretty good. And more up to date, obviously. So that isn't bad. That's pretty good data, that. You can see where that river is. There's a culvert there, a little stream. Now, if we were working in this area, I'd be instantly wanting to have a look at whether I've got a flooding issue. I suspect not, because it looks higher. It's pretty high, that, compared. But let's just double check. So we could go and start looking at flood data. We're going to have a look at a couple. There is a download surface for rivers and flooding. So there's flood zone 3, where you can download it. And it's the same sort of map. Oh, have they buggered that up? I think they have. Anyway, it's the same sort of download service as well. Yeah. All right, maybe they've changed it. But anyway, it's in there. I will check it on that document. If it has changed, I will update it and send that out. Okay, so we can get that data. And let's have a look at it. So I've previously downloaded that. Where did I put it? LiDAR. Let's go to flood zone. And there's flood zone 3, and it downloads as a shape file. So you just drag and drop it in. It is, I've cut it down already, but the shape file is basically England and Wales. It's 600 megabytes big, so you'll have to cut it down. You can get this to do it for you. If I go coverage areas, because I just want to cover the land, maybe let's make it kind of blue. You could create a coverage for that, but if I just make it blue for now. If you want a transparency on it, just put an alpha channel value on there. I don't know, 150, bit of a guess. Again, you need to make sure it's on the British National Grid, and you need to make sure it's draped and clipped. So let's see if our site floods. And the answer is pretty close, but no, it doesn't. Okay, wouldn't like to live there, but it doesn't. Okay, so at this very early stage, I'm now thinking, okay, I need to probably look at procuring the highest resolution data that the EA provide, which they do. They'll give you that free of charge as well. Now, the other thing I wanted to show you as well before we run out of time was some open data as well. So I've gone to the Ordnance Survey and I've downloaded all the open data of the buildings. And here we are. These are the free ones. So because they've not mapped the buildings very much, we'll download the OS ones. These are 100-kilometre tiles, by the way, so again, you need to make sure you clip them. So I will tell it that they're buildings. I'll just put an arbitrary 6 metres on there. Make sure it's on the British National Grid. Make sure they're draped and make sure you clip it. And the OS have mapped all the buildings. Brilliant. Okay, so if I was going to work on this site, get rid of that building and put my Revit model on and what have you. My later webinars, I'll be doing that. I'll be putting Revit models on. I'll be putting car parks in there. We'll be designing on these on the later ones. This is a precursor to all of them. Okay, we're running out of time, so I just want to show you one more thing, and this time is AutoCAD users. If you're an AutoCAD user, don't download AutoCAD, download AutoCAD Map 3D. As you can see, it looks just like AutoCAD, but it has this thing here called the task pane. So it works in exactly, there's nothing changed in terms of your AutoCAD usage. You've got all these different workspaces. I'm just going to go back to my standard workspace. This is the one I work on, which is the mapping one in there. There's your ArcGIS connector. But if I was going to work with some digital data, let's show you how to do that. So let me go in to my data. And I'm going to look at downloaded, the higher quality data. So this is OS Master Map. All right, so Master Map. OS Master Map. Hang on, something weird has happened. Oh, I know why. Yeah, it's me being daft. Exeter samples. Okay, so in here, I have got the OS Master Map, and I've added the building heights to it. Okay, so I've got information with building heights on it, and I can just drag and drop it. So imagine this is my AutoCAD. If I was to try and get all the tiles for this, it would take ages. It's a big old data set. There it is. Forget that. There's all the master map data in there. And you can do all sorts. If I look at the table, we've got all sorts of information we can use in there. You could just style it like the old landline product if you wanted to. Let me just say no color. So there we are. And you can also download all the text in there as well. Or you can style it using themes based on this data here. So I can say descriptive group, all the polygons. We'll use a style palette, and I've already got one here called Master Map Full. Yeah, that's the right one. And we can have coloured stuff in there. And we can do queries and stuff like that, some really useful ones. But because I've run out of time, I'm not going to go into that in any more detail. Just know, as an AutoCAD user, you can use Map 3D. I'm going to go in here, though, and just have a look on here, because there's one other thing I want to show you. If I was designing in this area here, okay, and I'm going to get my drainage to come and join on here, I could do with knowing if that road floods. So what you could use is you could use the map functions in Civil 3D. Now to open up the task plane, there's the command map W space, the word space, SPACE. Turn that on in here and go data, connect to data, because in here, this is the same for AutoCAD users, you've got WMSs as well, web mapping services. So again, I've given you some really useful ones in here. So one that's really useful. There we are, surface water, 0.1% chance of flooding. Okay, that's the link to the page, and there's also a WMS link in there. And basically, you paste in that WMS link, which I've already done, 0.1%. I'm connecting direct to the Environment Agency server now. Oddly, you have to make this a little bit bigger just to see it. There it is. I'm going to add it to my map. So I'm connecting directly to the EA server. I've not downloaded any data. I've not done anything. And we're going to get, for the whole of England and Wales, that information. I'll just turn that rose off. So as I zoom in, oh, there it is. So that is a 1 in 1,000 year event directly from the Environment Agency. No data downloads, nothing. And you can do that in Map 3D, which means AutoCAD users can download Map 3D and do it, or you can do that in Civil 3D. It's a little more complicated to do that in InfoWorks. You're better off downloading the data if you're going to do that in there. And I really have run out of time, so I apologise for that. So if you have any questions, or if you didn't get that guide, or if you have any problems with that guide, that handout that I've given you, please let me know. I'll leave this open just for 5 more minutes, no more. You can type in your questions, or you can email them to me. I don't mind either or. Next, please remember to use your support. So if you are a Graitec customer, then please use the support. Use it for training. If you can't remember how to do something, that's fine. Use support for that. We will obviously help as much as we possibly can. Or of course, if you've broken something, please use our support. If you're not a Graitec customer, obviously that's an option. Now is a bit an uncertain time to start swapping, but use your own support or the Autodesk support in there. But we're always there to help. So it's a bit of an unprecedented time. Everybody's making things up as they go along. So just please get in touch if you need any help working from home or anything else. And that's it. I'm done for the day. I apologize for overrunning. I will leave this up for the next 3 minutes, maybe 5. We'll see how I get on. But thank you for attending. And goodbye and good luck.